Hi, I'm Emily. I talk about traveling remote, working abroad, and building businesses. So this topic is a little bit different because this is just my actual advice and outlook on the current job market, especially for Gen Z. A lot of Gen Z are currently graduated looking for jobs. It is hard to find a job right now in this current climate, especially in tech, which is a space that I've worked in for the past 6+ years. So I personally have worked from startups, small scale startups that have jumped from Series B to C of 10 people startups. I worked in big tech like Stripe, Google, etc. And I came from a school that was not very well known. Actually, it's a smaller scale school called San Francisco State University. And the people that I was competing against were usually Stanford graduates or UC Berkeley graduates. So given all the experiences that I've had in the Bay Area, I have some advice that I would want to evoke on Gen Z if you want it. To me, I'm someone who's very honest and transparent about things that I feel strongly about, things that I've seen. This is just my perspective and things that have worked for me. So please take everything with a grain of salt and let me know if you guys have questions below. So if you're probably watching this right now, you're most likely unemployed and you're like, oh shit, I need to start making money. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably applying to a couple hundreds of jobs every week, either on LinkedIn, trying to network your butt off, etc. Usually in the start of your career, what you want to do, especially when you're still job searching, to lower your expenses as much as possible. Living anywhere, especially in a high cost of living city, your accommodations are always going to be the most expensive. So if I were talking to my nephew, perhaps one day when they're looking for a job in the market and they can't find anything for a couple of months, my best bet is live at home if you can, if you have that privilege to do so, to save money on rent. I know it sucks, but trust me, it will save you a lot of pain in the future if you go into like credit card debt or anything. So ultimately, what you want to do is lower all of your expenses as much as possible. I've even seen some people just take on like part-time jobs, bartending, working at a bookstore, walking dogs. They take up side gigs just so that they have some sort of steady income rather than, again, racking up credit card debt and digging themselves into a hole for their future self. The reason why I say this too is because when you are younger, I feel like you're more adaptable, you're more flexible with things. Back when I was younger, I was always sharing a room with someone else to minimize my expenses. And now that I'm like 30 something, I'm like, there's no way I want to share a room with someone that I met off of Facebook Marketplace. So anyways, just think about that, about minimizing your expenses, because that will be the most painful thing that you'll have to deal with, because ultimately you need a job to make money, and money gives you the options to do things that you love to do, etc., buy the things that you like. A lot of people approach networking very differently. The things that have worked for me specifically is actually building genuine, curious relationships with people who have roles that I'm interested in as well, or perhaps have the network that can broaden my horizons. Generally, your first degree and second degree connections are probably the people who will be the most empathetic to your situation and want to help you out. If you graduated from a certain school, maybe it's looking at the alumni who graduated from your school, who potentially may be mentors to you in this job search, or who can recommend you to a certain role. Especially if you're on LinkedIn and you're looking for a certain role and you're like, oh, I have a second degree connection there. And you kind of connect the dots so that you get closer to that company or to that person who could potentially help you out in the role that you're seeking. I do think that networking is kind of a form of art. I get a lot of DMs usually saying like, hey, like I saw this job at this company, can you refer me? And I'm like, what the heck? Like, no, like I barely know you, and it's very rude for you to like outright ask me. So generally, if you are reaching out, make it very personalized, call them by their name, share something that you know about them, about what connects you both together, etc., to help them feel closer to you and more willing to help you. And that's usually through LinkedIn or email, and just always be courteous and kind. I would also say that it makes sense to show up to the places where the people that have your job or are in the industry that you're in. Let's say you are a new grad with an engineering degree and you want to work for a startup or whatever, a big tech company. And there's a couple hackathons going on in the Bay Area or wherever you're located. There's prize money, there's a lot of energy there, there's maybe startups recruiting. I really do think hackathons are a way to kind of enter that space, to kind of work on something cool, to keep your brain going, to network with other people and see who's hiring. Also, it gives you a chance to build a project as part of your portfolio to show other people what you are capable of building. Because simply, sometimes a resume right now is just not enough. People want to see projects, they want to see contract work, they want to see what you've been able to build already as proof of work to know that you can actually do the job. So to go to these events, I know can be super energy draining, they can be really daunting, and sometimes it might cost money, but there are ways to kind of like navigate that. If you are a student or just a fresh grad, always email the event organizer and just be like, I can't afford to pay for this ticket right now. Could you comp me one as like a community ticket, etc., things like that. Generally, they're very open-minded to it and they might even give you a discount. So just a hack there, because I've been on the event organizing side before, and definitely when people ask, I try to do my best to help them. So again, yes, events. Meeting people in person really helps bridge and define that connection. You might be able to help them as well. And I'm not saying like industry specific events as well. Like sometimes you can go to your friends' hangouts, right? Or you can try to lean into like your hobbies. You never know who you're going to meet, to be honest. So I think the wider you're able to throw your net and to kind of meet people who are outside of like your general circle, it truly will only benefit you, especially if you're curious and you're just like open to new experiences. While you're unemployed, I would also certainly recommend continuing to upskill in certain ways. So there are so many free courses out there online, like on Coursera, on Maven, on YouTube. Like sometimes I don't think you really need an MBA. Like you can find everything online. Going through an MBA is like you're basically paying for a specific network. That's all I feel like the value is there. But consistently, all of my friends who have been quite successful in their career have done is upskill in communication skills. And that means they've taken writing courses, they've gone to Toastmasters, they've done things to kind of like bring their overall personal branding up so that they know themselves very well, they know how to articulate their thoughts very clearly and communicate to certain people on their team, etc. So just keeping that in mind, that when you see there are so many programs for people to become a better executive leader through like communication skills or just as a manager, just know that these skills, while most people don't invest in them, they are very important, and especially if you're interviewing or meeting new people and trying to connect with them, that will only benefit you in the long term. If you have been unemployed for quite a while, it does take a toll on your mental health. And it's a hard time to be in, especially when you never know when the end is near. I have a friend who is a senior marketing manager, and she was looking for a job for almost an entire year. She was laid off twice, and then she finally found a role. So you can only imagine the ups and the downs and like the lows of this entire like situation she's been in. Because this will take a toll on your mental health, there is a need to address your mental health in a way where you're protecting yourself because you know what you're going through. And so one of the things that I would recommend is making sure that you kind of do have a regimen or like a schedule. It's like waking up at a certain time, carving out time to do applications or networking, carving out time to exercise, carving out time to talk to friends who are going through the same thing, or just someone that you can like lean on. Having this type of structure will help you find a little bit more control in this reality that is like beyond your control. And the reason why I say this is because you can mope on the couch and you can sleep in until 3 p.m. and it's just gonna mess you up. That's just all I'm gonna say. I'm not a therapist. All I know, I personally have gone through these ups and downs, and I know it will mess you up. So having a regimented schedule is super helpful. It gives you something to look forward to. It helps you sharpen your skills. Even sometimes if you need to carve out time and like remote work with your friends, or even like look at job opportunities with your friends, go and do that. You'll have that socialization and you'll be able to kind of vent to someone and also maybe get their ideas on like certain things. Okay, so let's talk about hacks. So I have a lot of hacks here and there because I've definitely had to be the underdog trying to get my foot in the door. I've done, honestly, 3 unpaid internships when I was a college student. It was really tough being an unpaid internship. Thank God they don't do these anymore as often, but I really did have to force my way through certain situations so that I could have the seat at a table. so I could have a seat at the table. One of the hacks that I like to do is usually I will reach out to someone, maybe read about what they're building, what they wrote about, and kind of say like, hey, like I read this article, it's really interesting. I was wondering if I could volunteer or help you with anything that you need. So in that sense, it's kind of like, oh, like, yes, I am a fresh grad, but I'm interested in helping you with something. And usually these people are probably more in power. They run a startup, or perhaps they might hire down the line, or they might be able to connect you with the right people. I cannot tell you how there are so many interesting people out there who potentially they may never hire you, but they know so many other founders that could potentially hire you or just like connect you with the right people. And all it takes is really just like one connection and one referral. The other thing that I have done in the past is just ask. I have just asked people like, hey, are you hiring for this role? Like, here's what I've built, here's what I've done, and this is like what I would love to build out for you. I'm very straightforward in what I can do, what I cannot do, and how I can help that specific person. Usually when you are asking for help, people will be like, I need help with this X, Y, and Z. But in reality, the way that people work, I mean, I hate to say this, but we are kind of all selfish in some ways. You really should be doing is like thinking about this person's time and being like, why would they help you? Like, what benefit would they get from helping you? You need to see it from their perspective, especially if they're very busy. You need to be offering some sort of value or giving some value down the line. And so when you think of it that way, it kind of shifts the way that you reach out to people and network with people. One of the other things that I like to do is you can look at certain VC firms and look at their portfolio companies and see which startups recently just got funding and apply to those companies. Usually those who just got funding, maybe their runway is a little bit longer. Whereas I think for big tech, they've been doing a lot of like silent layoffs. Apple just laid off 100 employees from like Apple News and Apple Books. But just know that no one's job is secured. In general, if you are looking for a role that's maybe not as competitive, like let's say there's a role at Facebook, there's probably like a couple hundred applicants, but then the one at the startup might have like 50 to 60. So it's a mixed bag, but one of the strategies that I've done is actually, again, look at VC firms, look at their startups and their portfolio and like reach out to the founders and see if you could work for them. I don't know if LinkedIn job postings are actually accurate. I've seen job postings that have been up for like almost a year. Applying to like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, like all of those like very basic job websites, I feel like doesn't really cut it. What I would also say is like articulating to people within your community that you are looking for a specific job. Letting people know what you need is very important because then they can think of you and connect you with someone. If you're kind of just like keeping to yourself and you don't tell anyone what they need, they're so busy, they're not gonna actually like know. They can't read your mind, right? I feel like sometimes in this job market, the basic standard is like having a referral. You know it's getting very competitive right now, and not to make you alarmed or anything like that, but I'm just giving you the stark reality of how things are. There have been stories of engineering managers being laid off and they are doing DoorDash to make ends meet because they have bills to pay too. I have friends who were not able to find a job for a couple of months to a year because the job market has been that tough. So I think understanding what you're dealing with, and again, just minimizing your costs, trying to network and connect with people, and then maybe even considering other industries like cybersecurity, government, healthcare. Like there are different industries that have always been quite stable and they don't really lay people off. So keeping your options open are definitely going to be in your best bet too. I don't think you can be so focused on like, I just want that one job at that one company. Life doesn't work out that way. So being open-minded, being flexible is going to benefit you in the long term. And then maybe when you get to a point where you actually have the credentials and the experiences, you'll get there as well. The last thing I want to say is that you are young. If you're a Gen Z, you have a long way ahead of you. And I say this with the best intentions and just understanding that the 20s are hard and it's confusing and you're still trying to figure out your identity. One of the things I will say too is your life doesn't have to be stuck in one city forever. You can also work abroad, you can study abroad, you could look for roles abroad. So just keep that in mind because I think that also helps you open up your world in terms of like, I have friends who went to go teach English in Korea or in Taiwan. They work at a company for a couple of years and then they transfer internally. I've done it as well. I've worked abroad in Singapore and then nomaded across Southeast Asia for a bit. So life will never be really linear, and especially with how inconsistent everything has been with the job market. Sometimes maybe looking just beyond your city or beyond the US could be actually beneficial. And it's just another idea, just throwing it out there. I definitely know it's hard. So I gave you all the advice that I could, and I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye.